and our bodies are like, they're telling us stuff all the time. So if we can like tune in and be like, oh, my heart's racing. Oh, that probably means that my thoughts are like jumping ahead to my future. And what am I aligning with in that moment?
This episode is sponsored by Southern Utah Safe and Vault. It's one-stop shop, buy, education, delivery, everything you need with the safe or a vault door. Website is safesfirst.com. Their showroom is 1397 West, Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Phone number is 435-767-7878. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derick Legg Podcast. We're back in the vault again today. This is episode 122. We've got a guest today. Her name is Jane Williams. She is an author, and I'm going to learn everything else about her today on the episode with you. So, Jane, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing really good.
Good. I'm excited to jump on this. So you have recorded with Cody Aiden.
Yes.
And he has 2 podcasts. So which one were you on?
Winning the Moment.
Winning the Moment podcast. Okay.
Yep.
And I think first we just kind of jump in with your book. Tell me about the book. What inspired you to write it? How long did it take? How's it going? It's been out about a month, I think you said.
Yeah.
Just kind of backstory your book with me.
Okay. So The Simple Jane, I started that journey like 8 years ago. So it was really it was on like a hunch. People would be like, what's your story? Like, who are you? What have you been doing? And I'm like, I don't know. And one day I was at an enrichment class for my daughter. I homeschooled, but I was like, did these enrichment classes. And one of my friends was like, you should write a book. And I'm like, it was the first time in my like mom moments that I had like not kids, because I had like 2 hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, an hour, maybe it was 4 hours, that I'm like, what am I going to do with my time?
Yeah.
And it was the first day, and she was like, you should write a book. I literally went home that day and started writing. Like, I didn't have an outline, I didn't have anything. I just was like, what would I want to write about? Like, okay, I'll write. And I started with like my birth. Like, I just started writing.
Day one.
Yeah, like in the womb. Yeah. Okay, it really isn't that.
In the beginning, there was Jane.
Yeah, seriously. So I just started writing, and then I didn't know that I really wanted to share my story. It was more just me processing, or like, do I even like writing? I love books, so I love reading them, but I've like never known how to write. And like, I always talk and I flip up words, and I don't know, like when I would read, I'm dyslexic, so I like read ahead and read around and all the things. So it wasn't anything that I really put this like, yeah. But it was after I started like really processing and writing, and I found out how deep it takes you into yourself when you're writing a memoir. About my first draft, I read it through, and the person I was reading it through was like, I love that you take me and you draw me into all of these like I'm very imaginative. So it would like take me into the imagination, and I loved that. They're like, but you kind of skirted past the pain. Like you didn't really go into the pain. And I'm like, that's because I didn't want to feel it.
Right. Yeah.
So that was like, because I probably finished my first draft of Simple Jane within 2 years. Okay. Like just the process of just kind of writing when I felt it. When I read that, I'm like, oh, okay. So I started back in the beginning, and I probably doubled. Like my book went from 40,000 words to 80,000 words. Wow. Like I totally like the chapters stayed the same, but just the depth and soul diving. Like it was such a process of like, all right, if I can go into my imagination and remember the good, like I'm going to go into the imagination and remember what fucking hurt. Like, what was the like, why didn't I want to go into that memory? And a few things popped up. I really wanted to respect the people in my life because it is a memoir. You know, I've got people that are likely going to read this, and I want to be really respectful of how I hold them, you know, how I hold that space. Because I know when I show up in a way that hurts somebody, like, it's not my intention. So I tried to write it from like my perspective of I was hurt and I didn't know how to process this. And this is how I processed that from when this happened to me. So yeah, and then kind of life happened, some situational stuff happened that I kind of put Simple Jane on hold. And 2 years ago, I went to go on a river trip, or I did go on a river trip, and it was a 5-day like whitewater rafting. It was beautiful, and I got an idea.
Where was that?
It was in Salmon.
Okay.
Yeah, my stepchildren, they were guides.
Okay, cool.
So it was amazing. Yeah, they'd been asked me to go for years, and I didn't do it. I was like, it's scary.
Do you know what they call a single river guide? Like if they're single, not in a relationship?
What do they call them?
Homeless.
Really? Seriously, it's actually probably true. These people like...
I had a river guide tell me that.
Yeah. Oh, I'd believe it.
He says if I didn't have a girlfriend, you know what they'd call me? Homeless.
Homeless. I live on the river.
Yeah.
Which means that their home is the river.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, and these like Grand Canyon ones too. Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
Like it's a thing. It's cool. Like it's intense. Like it's a little crazy.
Sorry, I got you off the track right there.
I like that, but I was like, oh yeah, actually, it does. It creates these like, it makes it a little uncomfortable. I mean, you're not tuned into like your family. You're like, I mean, I did have my daughter with me, but like, it's nerve-wracking. 5 days without like you're around. I was with I think 26 people. Like
Sure.
I'm not alone. But there was actually a fire that year, and it was like what would you do if that fire what? Like we're just gonna like send it on these rafts down like
Probably.
the rapids? You probably would. At least we're in water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was really great. Like that, I had an idea for what I wanted to write about next. And I thought, oh, I want to write this, but I didn't feel honoring to the Simple Jane. I was like, if I start another project, I want to honor her. Like, I want to like wrap it up, package it up and be like, all right. Because my intention was to share it at that point. So I got a little bit more serious and then it just took a minute. But that was when it was like, all right, I'm going to read this to some people. I read it to, not in person, but I like recorded it in my daughter's closet. And then I would release a chapter every week. And I wanted to get some feedback.
Sure.
And it just takes a while to find like editors and it's expensive. I think I've spent like $5,000 to like, you know.
And that's you writing the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I published it and like. I like found some editors,
So
but
you
I've
self-published it.
I did.
Wow.
I know. So hit me up if you like need some help.
Well, I want to explore that a little bit because I've had people talk to me. Like we just had Amy Stevens on.
Yeah.
And she talked about her book and she had it sitting in front of her and she doesn't want to self-publish. And so I think it's more one of those like when you're going to buy a red truck, you start seeing a lot of red trucks.
Yeah.
It just seems like I've had a lot of conversations with people that are authors or are writing or have written. And so I'm just like I'm tuned into it a little more than I used to be.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm having more conversations like that with people. So I want to get into that a little bit too.
I feel like that's how universe works too.
Oh, for sure.
You know, when you're like, when you have this open, I don't know, energy or open where you're like, I kind of want to invite this into my life. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Right.
Like, I'd love to provide insight to see if that's actually what you really want. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
it's 100% true. I think that you're just aware. Like you're aware of your surroundings more when you have that top of mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like marketing, right? You want to be top of mind awareness when you're in marketing for anything. And then that's going to bring people in. Like we do safes, like the safe store we have.
Yeah.
And it's like most people don't even buy 2 safes in a lifetime, right? So it's not like a repeat product that you sell the same person.
Yeah.
But being that top of mind of the person that hasn't bought one yet and they just keep thinking of, Derick in the safe store, it's kind of the same thing. You just want to, once you're in tune to that environment, you just start picking up those conversations. And I think there's a lot to it of people just gravitate to it as well. It's like just that energy, right?
Yeah, like attracts like.
Yeah. Well, it's like you come in smiley, bubbly, upbeat, and then Mallory and Blake had even said it, like, it's the end of the day. We've all worked all day. We're all tired, right?
Yeah.
And then you come in all bubbly and smiling and laughing, and now everyone's upbeat. And so it's kind of the same thing. It's just that environment that just attracts.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Sorry, now I got you off base again. Anyway, so
I like it.
well, I want to get through
the journey.
I want to get through the book, and then we can get down some rabbit holes. So
yeah.
So you published it. You found an editor.
Oh,
How did all that go?
Yeah. So I was going to actually like hire it out, like the editing and the like a publisher, and I toyed with the idea of like writing, because you got to give if you try to find an agent that's like maybe going to get you into Penguin House or some of these other like Random House, whatever they're called. I don't even remember them all, but there's a lot. Mm-hmm. You don't I can't even just like submit my book without like an agent. So then I'm like, okay, well, do I want to get an agent? So I dabbled around with like writing what my synopsis was, like each chapter, who is Jane, who's my audience. And I'm like, this just feels very overwhelming, and this is not my job. I've got so much things going on in my life. Like, I kind of just want to do like, what's the next step? So I started doing that instead. Okay. Like, because it just felt overwhelming. Sure. And you have to wait. Like, it's months. Like, you'll be sending it to I did start out that way, and I was into it months before I even would hear back from some of these like agents. And I'm like, I feel like I just lost 3 months.
Right.
And so that's like how a book can get written in 8 years, right? You're like, whoa.
You're like, it's not me. I was just waiting on everyone else for 8 years.
Yeah. And then it's like, and you're like in it. Like, I'm writing and I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone, of course they're going to say yes. They're going to so vibe with my book. Like, of course it's a New York #1 time bestseller. Right. And then you don't hear from them. Or they're like, actually, your book is not really what we're looking for. And I'm like, damn it. They just don't see my vision.
Right.
So then I think that like just this last year, I'm like, okay, you have to honor this simple Jane. I was kind of boss babying it in other ways of my life. And this one, I'm like, just do the damn thing, Jane. Like, it's because you're scared.
Sure.
And you don't know what to do.
Did you know that like right off the bat, or did it take some searching
The river taught me that.
Yeah. Okay.
The river taught me that like, I'm scared. I'm scared to lean in to the things that I lose control over. Mm-hmm. Sharing my book, I lose total control. I read another book that really actually helped me to release Simple Jane was Big Magic from Elizabeth Gilbert. And she talks about when she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, after the book was like this major hit, people would be like, so what's like your next book? And she's like, if I knew how to write a #1 seller, I would have already done it. Like, I have all of these books that I've already written that you have not even read. And so she's like, it's not that you just know. It's just that sometimes something just happens, and that's how it was. So for her, and people would be like, oh, it's like you knew my story. Like, I totally related with that. How did you even know that that's how it was? And she realized that when you release your work, it's no longer yours anymore. It's theirs. So when someone's going to read Simple Jane, it's not my work anymore. I've been able, for me to be able to know that, like, okay, they're going to see it from like their perspective. My biggest goal is to help them align with themselves, because that's what it helped me do. Gabriella Bernstein says that. She says she knows when she's written a great work when it inspires herself. So I'm like, oh my God, like I could still read Simple Jane and feel inspired. I'm like, oh my gosh, like who wrote this? Because there were so many inspired moments within the book, and so many raw and delicate and soft and scary moments that were really real for me. So those moments hopefully tap into the real moment within my reader, that they now relate with the book. So they're not living my same life, but I'm drawing something out of them that they have like maybe tucked away and been like, I don't know what that looks like anymore. I don't know what imagination looks like anymore. I don't know what feeling my feels looks like anymore. They're unsafe. Like, I don't want to go there. And I get that. So that was really where I'm like, okay, I can do this even though I'm losing all control over who's going to read my book, the critics, then all the things. All right.
Like, were you conscious of that going through it, of like, I need to be specific enough and raw enough in these situations, but also I don't know if vague's the right word, but to
Yeah.
where someone else could connect to that. Like, were you aware of that
Yeah.
when you were writing it?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think I was writing it like and any of my work when I do write, I want to be real enough for me that it takes me to a place where like I'm playfully writing to where I'm like, ooh, I loved that metaphor. I really connected with that. So I think a lot of it is like the metaphors that I
Right.
do are the vague parts of it.
Got ya.
You know, I talk about like one of the times when I was doing some deep slot canyon like sculpting, like so much was going inside, changing like my inner engineering. But if you were to look at me and you knew me, you wouldn't be like, whoa, what is Jane going through? But it's very personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going through these shifts. And so I like related it to this desert canyonscape because it's like, you don't know, like you could be like looking in the desert and you don't even know that like a mile down the road is like this huge gorge and it's just got this wild raging water. And so I do a lot of metaphors in the book because
Okay.
I relate with that. So maybe that's how it goes. But I did know there was some vagueness. I didn't do a lot of names because I just felt like it wasn't necessary because it's the feeling. I wanted to capture the feeling. I wanted to capture like the heart behind it because I wanted to see my heart and I wanted like, if anybody's going to read my book, I want them to see their own heart in that, like, or their own thought. Like if I'm imaginative and I made forts, I've already like, it's been amazing. So I've sold 70 copies.
Nice.
But like, it's people have already like I get DMs or I get like friends and family and they're like, oh my gosh, like I remember these forts and the way that you talked about the wind and the way that it moved and you got creative with things, like it brought them back to their childhood. And it's like, it gets me giddy. Or like when they're like, oh, when you were struggling with that first kid, like that was totally me. Like that was really hard for me too. Like I really felt drawn in that way. So I love that. And that's what my platform is. Like my platform is that I really want for future, like as I'm growing, that I want to be able to help people write their story.
Yeah.
Like how do you express it?
Well, I've got 122 episodes of doing that.
Yeah.
So like when you're talking about that, I'm sitting there just thinking, again, like totally different thing. You're writing a book and I'm doing a podcast, but
Yeah.
it's the same. I mean,
Yeah.
when we started this, it was, we're coming out of 2020. We're having all the changes, all the issues going through COVID, everything, and people not working. It was a weird time, right? Because people couldn't work, and then the government was just shipping checks to everybody, and it was a weird thing to go through. And a lot of the hard times that people were going through and conversations I was having with friends and family and everything, and like I said, I have a retail store, so I'd have customers come in talking about the same stuff, and I just realized like everyone's kind of going through the same things, but everyone feels alone.
Yeah.
And so that was a big driver in this of like why we don't have a topic, why we're not a niche, why it's just bring people on and let's talk about, their triumphs and struggles and then how many people relate to that one person we brought on. And even if they'll never meet you, ever see you, whatever, right? And hopefully it makes that one person not feel alone. I mean, that was the whole goal of the podcast. And like we've had some messages, I've had text messages, I've had things, and I'm like, okay, we've done that. Like in the first few episodes, I'm like, okay, we've done that. We've touched some people. So I love it. Like everything you're saying, I'm just like, I'm doing the same thing. It's just in a different avenue.
Well, and that's when you can find what's relatable. Like find that. Like if you are being authentic to yourself, like you're going to draw authenticity out of the people around you.
You know how scary that is?
It's really scary.
But that's part of it, right? It's like you have to understand that and be able to pull that cloak off. Like you have to, and that's the hardest part. And it is with me too. It's like when people come on, it's their episode, right? Like we talk about them, it's their podium that we talk. And and people get on me like that know me personally, and they're like, "You got to talk more about your story." And I'm like, "Dude, that's not the point." But everything that I relate to when people come on too. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I was just getting down another rabbit hole. Anything else on the book that we want to jump on?
No, well, I want to stick with that for just a minute because I think that is, it's so beautiful because even in like whatever does resonate as like people are sharing, I mean, you do chime in and you do share your heart with that. And it's noticeable even within just the few episodes that I was kind of listening to lean into who you were and to be like, hey, what kind of vibe is this? And is it something I resonate with? And how can I connect? Or, but it's very apparent. It's, it's not like you need every episode devoted to who you are because it's you wear it on your sleeves. Like it is your podcast. Anybody that is like genuinely following you, like is like they're following that. Like it's really cool. It's jumping on board with your mission.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anyone else out there, if you're listening and supporting people like that, let them know. I mean, there's times where I'm just like, is this even doing anything? I mean, we've been doing it 2.5 years, right? So like I've had moments where I'm like, is this even proving the point that I'm still trying to prove, And, and then every now and then we'll get a comment or review or something. And I'm like, okay, like it just kind of, like I said, I mean, we've all worked all day today.
Yeah.
I've seen my kid for an hour, right? And then I'm here doing this and I'm like, I'm doing this, trying to give back, trying to help people.
Yeah.
And it draws on you.
Yeah.
And then especially like it draws a lot of energy, I think, to do this kind of stuff. And like writing the book, I think would be the same thing. Like, especially when you're reliving stuff about yourself, I think that's a whole different thing. Right.
And I think it's any time we're honest with ourselves. Yeah. It's like, you gotta be radically honest to be able to really understand yourself though. And sometimes that honesty does not look very pretty. Yeah. I'm like, ooh, Jane, like, all right, let's deal with that. Let's move into that. Or it's sad. And I'm like, but sadness, I don't want to live it. And especially when you get like these mind fucks of like, but I'm creating the secret. And if I live in sadness, then I'm going to like create all this sadness stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if I believe in that anymore. Like I do love that idea of like vibrating on what we want, but we've got to be able to like allow and welcome these feelings of being a human.
Right.
Like, the moments where we're feeling insecure, the moments where we're feeling overwhelmed, like feeling overwhelmed, like where we're saying yes to work over saying yes to our kids. Like, I mean, it feels justifiable because we're like, well, of course, like I'm doing this for my kids. But then you're like, and how would I support my kids if I don't do this? But hold on, I need to readjust. And that's what life can be if we let it. I mean, I don't know. Take everything with a grain of salt. But it's like, if we can like move with this like dichotomy of like having to work and also wanting to rest and relax and be with our family, and like, what do you trust in? How do you do it? That's another thing. Like, I'm recently divorced, and the weight of having to provide for myself, like, what does my future look? Oh, crap. Spoiler alert if you read Simple Jane. Doesn't all end in gumdrops and roses. It's fine. But it's like that weight of what like my spouse has held or my ex-spouse has held to like, what does this look like? I feel like every woman needs to feel that. Like, because the woman then sits in this place where they're like, I'm exhausted. I've been taking care of the kids and the house and all the things. And I get that. And it's real and it's heavy. But then like on their spouse's mind, they're thinking of all the things like, man, what's the economy doing? Where are my investments? How am I going to provide? And you're not just thinking about this month or this year. Like, you're thinking 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And now you're thinking about your kid. Because now you're like, how am I going to get them through school? Like, those are a lot of big feels. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what's my retirement? Like, what do I look like? I don't want to have to like go to millionairematch.com, right? Like, I want to know that I am completely capable to take care of myself because I am, and then partnership is just fabulous and wonderful, but like, not because you have to, right? Like, especially financially, sometimes women get into that where it's like, oh, I just got to find me a sugar daddy. I'm like, become your own sugar daddy. But I not that I wish divorce on anybody, but it would be beautiful to be able to have that, like, just appreciation for, yeah, when your husband comes home and he veges out for a second and he tunes out, like, it's not because he doesn't love you. It's not because he doesn't want to spend time with you and the kids. Like, he literally is like, in the same way that you have had it, like, you're like, I cannot do this for one more second. Like, that's probably what they're feeling too.
Yeah.
And you're both feeling at this space compared to being like, where are you at? Like, I need to take a minute. Like, when I go to work and I'm like, been talking all day, I do hair. So I'm like, it's like I'm a therapist all day. And then they come in and I'm like, before I walk into my house, I'm like, I can't talk. Like, I just sit in my garage and I'm like, whew, okay. I know there's going to be a lot of talking. There's going to be a lot of connection. Okay. And then walk in when I'm ready. So it's not like, sometimes I walk in, I'm like, I get that you want to tell me all about your day, but like, I need to decompress.
Right.
I've been talking for 10 hours.
I've done that. I've sat in the truck out in the side of the house because like my kid's still at the stage where it's like, daddy, and he like runs to you, you know? And so I'm like, I've got to be in that mental state of like, I've got to unload some stuff. I got to unload some work. And so I've sat in my truck and just had those thoughts because I've got to be that daddy as soon as I walk in the door, right?
Yeah.
And where's my brother at? You know, and he comes around booking it around the corner. And I like what you said about having those feels and doing that. I've talked to a lot of people recently, and that's when it comes to that point, I'm like, dude, it's okay. Like, have those thoughts, like, have those emotions.
Yeah.
Part of that is, and it depends on situation. The ones that I've been talking to, it's like, but man, we got to tomorrow's another day.
Yeah.
Like, have that emotion today, man. Feel it.
Yeah.
You know, and if it takes 2 days, it takes 2 days. Third day, you got to get going again.
Yeah.
You know, get refocused.
Yeah.
And I, like I've talked about it on here, I've had a lot of back issues. I have like chronic back issues. And I got on this medicine that helps my back out a lot. Well, turns out it's an antidepressant. And so I'm on this antidepressant now. And there's times where I've had to like stop. And like, I can almost feel it like still building up even though I'm on an antidepressant. And so it's a weird thing. I had this talk with my wife who has a medical background. And, and I was telling her like right now I basically work 3 jobs. And then we do a podcast every week. I have a 3-year-old, you know, and I don't know that I could do it all without an antidepressant. Is that a weird thought?
No, I think it's an honest thought.
Yeah, I've thought about it, and like my tolerance just gets pushed up with that medication, right?
Yeah.
And so but there's still times where I'm like getting to that boiling point. I guess this is the point I'm trying to make. Like, I still get to that boiling point and I have to stop. I've had a couple like slightly mental breakdowns, I guess, like not full on panic attacks, but I have had a couple. I've been honest about that on here too.
Yeah. And those are real.
Oh, for sure. And I've even had a couple buddies that like check on me, you know, be like, hey buddy, check in. How's everything going? Yeah. And there was one day my buddy was checking in and I'm like, dude, I think I'm going to lose it today. Like, I'm doing everything I can, but I think I'm going to lose it. Yeah. And that's what I sat down. I started practicing what I would have told myself. I'm like, okay, dude, just what's going on? Have these like stop, slow down. Yeah. Have these feelings. And like, there was a rough day and like, we're all allowed to have rough days. But man, the next day I text my buddy first thing in the morning, said, hey man, I'm regrouped. I'm refocused. Like, I'm ready to take on today. And so I guess that's the whole point I was trying to get to is like, hey man, have those feelings. You have a bad day. It's okay. Yeah. Just like, don't let it become valid. Yeah. Don't let it become 2, 3, 4, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months. Don't let it get that far. At some point you have to kind of, you're still living your life, right? Like, you still have to be able to build up and take on the next day and get focused. Yeah. Well, and I think when you resist it, like, what do they say? What you resist persists. So if you're like, I'm not allowed, like, I mean, sometimes when we get into this like boss mode, or we're like, I can't fail mode, like there's no window. Like, I have to do this. We don't allow those things to come in because they're going to mess with our future.
And we care so much about our future. So we're like, no, 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 until it finally is like, fuck you.
Yeah, you don't get
it's
choice.
A yes. Like, so if we can tune in to our bodies more and we can be like, whoa, that I'm not in alignment to saying yes to this like very vulnerable side that's like feeling anxious or depressed or overwhelmed or whatever it is, like maybe incapable. Like, I feel like that's when it just keeps building, maybe.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't know, like maybe it doesn't have to take so long. Maybe it can just be this moment where you welcome that in. Maybe you cry about it. Maybe you like yell about it. Maybe you write about it. Maybe you just sit with it, and you have this meditation or yoga or whatever you need to allow you to be able to feel that way and to validate that how you're feeling is okay. Then you're able to move through it. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, so what, I had that feeling.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think once you realize it, it's like, okay, stop and get it squashed and move and get rebuilt.
Yeah, like, so what?
Yeah. It's
so
like trying to push it down and push it down and push it down. Now you've gone 4 days dealing with it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, a depression or anxiety, man, it can get like, if you're constantly thinking about your future or like the scariness of maybe what's going on in the economy or, COVID or whatever there were, like, and are, and the things that like are past that trigger us now. And that stuff's real. And our bodies are like, they're telling us stuff all the time. So if we can like tune in and be like, oh, my heart's racing. Oh, that probably means that my thoughts are like jumping ahead to my future. And what am I aligning with in that moment? Like, what am I saying yes to? So you can take a little breath and be like, oh, well, you maybe don't have to find out what you were thinking about, but you can maybe align with what you do want to be thinking about. Like, okay, I want to take some breaths. Like, I can tell, like, good job for trying to keep me safe and get me in the future and like know that this is unstable. Thank you. I'm going to go back into choosing who's going to be driving this vehicle.
Right.
And then move from that other place of maybe I want to see my boy. And if I'm like, anxious about my future, I might miss those really tender moments that are teaching tonight. So I'm going to lean into that. And then when we're ready to come back up, I can talk with you anxiety later, but this moment I'm choosing it with my boy or my wife or my family or my book or person you're talking to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think it's being present, right? Like I'm not good at that. And I think that I've been an entrepreneur for 16 years. And so it's like I've been projecting, numbers, projecting, whatever. I got all these things running through my mind. I can't pick one, but I'm projecting numbers. I'm projecting payroll. I'm projecting products. I'm projecting the next sale. I'm projecting the next holiday. I'm projecting all those things, everything. And making sure you can make payroll, making sure you make enough time for the wife, making sure you get over to the podcast in time, right? You're like projecting all these things out.
Yeah.
And when it comes to being present, I've just not practiced it. Like I've just never, does that make sense? Like I've never put a lot of time into it.
Yeah.
And on the podcast, really, like whenever in our lives in 2023, do you get to just like stop and talk to someone for an hour or two?
Yeah.
Like I don't do that during the day anytime, and except for this.
Yeah.
And so like I love this because it's made me like slow down. It's me and you. We're in this studio. We're with Blue Form. Of course, they're in the next room listening to us.
Yeah, they are. Hey.
But it's like even when I have like my buddies on, like I just had Tyson Coford on 2 episodes ago, and we talked about this marketing thing that we did with my store. And it's like even me and him, we talk often because he runs all my social media with the store. He does all my marketing websites, all that. But like we never just sit down and chat. And it never happens. And I don't do it with anybody. And maybe I'm weird. Maybe other people do that, but I don't.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think you're weird. I think there's a lot of people that can relate with that. And I think that you can turn it into a conscious practice. Like, and you did. You consciously decided to do this. And it's a yes for you. And it's still a yes for you. It may not always be a yes for you, but it is tonight. And you showed up, and it is going to be maybe next Tuesday and Monday.
Yeah.
My days.
We don't have a set day we record, so.
Fine. It's a day
in
next
a week.
Yeah. So I think that is incredibly relatable to what most people probably think about. And I think that it's also what's so attractive when you do hear it and you do have these moments, because it ignites this thing inside of us that's like, ooh, I want more of that.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get more connection with the people that I am around that are my yeses? And then we can start to maybe cut off a little bit more of what are the draining or the things that are not as big of yeses to us, Because when we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. So it's like, what are my yeses? And we can, without expectations, instead just being drawn from this like, oh, I liked that. How do I create more of that?
Yeah, I think that I'm very anxiety ridden through my life, like my childhood and stuff.
Yeah.
And it goes along with that projecting, because they say like anxiety comes from the future, depression comes from the past.
Yeah.
And so I'm always putting that out there in the future, which gives me anxiety. Right.
Yeah.
And so since I've even done the podcast, like the last few years and having a kid for 3 years, like just being, it sounds so dumb to say out loud, but just being present, how much it's changed my life. And because I wasn't present for 15 years. Yeah. And then all of a sudden now I'm forced to every week. Well, I force myself to, but I'm forced to every week.
I love that.
And it's changed. It's changed me.
Yeah.
And you've got teenagers, right?
Yes, I do.
When's the last time that they sat down? And I don't know, maybe they do with their friends. I don't know. I'm just thinking like in the electronic world now. Yeah. Like when are they ever sitting down and doing this? Like I didn't know you till you got here today, right? We met at the doorstep.
Yes, we did.
And it's like we already have this instant connection. Yeah. And I just think like we need more of that. And so many people aren't getting that.
Yeah. And I think that hopefully what these things do, like the person listening to this, like they may not be sitting at the table with us and being like, all right, we're going to like connect with these two people, but they can think of who they do want to reach out to. Right. And the community that now they can be active participants in being, and that's what's so great too about being able to like getting out of our comfort zone. Because when we get out of our comfort zone, it gives permission for others. Like, oh, Jane and Derick, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just like taking a baby step to the next thing. And so then it gives them permission to be like, maybe I say yes. And maybe I spend a little bit longer talking to someone about something that here's the thing. I remember when I was writing my memoir, it brought me back to times that like Jane is loud. She has a very big energy. Like my family didn't know what to do with me. Like my mom thought I was deaf. Like I went to tons of ENT doctors because she was like, no one just talks this loud. Like there's something wrong with the way that she is like, I was always fine. My hearing's great. And then it just instilled this like, what's wrong with me? And I was just this like very active. I have this energy that is like, I've had to learn how to like hone her in when I'm in certain things, even doing hair, because I can get so loud and then the whole salon's like, Jane.
They're like, it's just Jane.
Yeah. But so I need to, but, and it's not that I made wrong. It's just that I'm learning that like, whoa, I don't want to take over anybody else's energy either. So it's like, we have these things, whatever our too much is, right? Mine was like too big, too loud, too like asking too many questions. Maybe others are, I'm too sensitive. Like I felt too much. I was too sad, or I thought too much, or I like whatever our too much is. We've created these masks that like keep us safe, because when we allow that space, like when I would go in deep conversation within like peers that were like, I'm, 13, 14, 15, asking questions about the universe. And like, do you see things in your imagination all the time too? And don't you want to do all these things? And they're just like, you're weird. I think this boy's cute over here. Yeah. And I'm like, well, yeah, the boy's cute. but did you know? Like, it just was like I never felt that I could fit in. And I think that that is everyone in a space. We've all created these masks. So when you start to see, like when I was going through the process of writing my book and I was like getting honest with myself, I'm like, wow, when did I start taking off these masks? When did I start to get brave? And I'm continually shedding them the more that I get to know myself and take times in those moments. But I think that that's something that it's scary as all else because we don't have answers. And like when we're in the present and we're like, ooh, but I know what Jane was. Like if I'm gonna share that Jane's this like loud and all the things, like that person might reject me and I don't have any masks anymore. Like if I share to my spouse that I'm terrified of what the future holds, I don't know where we're going to be at in 20 years. Like my business is like took a hit or all these things, like these insecurities where we feel like we're supposed to show up and we are scared. It's like, it's almost like there's this shield that goes up that we're like, all right, well, if I don't look at it and I just like know that I can do this, but then we don't have the support. So it's like, it's this weird dance. Oh, it's freaking life. Gosh.
Well, it's like being self-aware is the biggest part of that. I think you have to, if you didn't know that Jane was loud, right? Like how do you ever get down that journey of reining it in? It's interesting that you said like, because I see people like you and like our last episode that we had, like as soon as you guys come in the door, it's just, you pump us up, like, and again, I don't know why I keep referencing this, but like we've been working all day, like we're all tired. And then we get around personalities like you and it's like, oh, we're ready to roll. Yeah. But you had said that like that could steal other energy. What do you mean by that? Like what, can you dive into that? Cause I'm just curious.
Ooh, yeah. I like that.
In my eyes, like when you people like you or your energy, big energy comes around, I just get hyped. Oh. And so I'm like, I wonder, so what am I not realizing on the other side of that?
That's a fabulous question. And it's one that I've recently been exploring. I think it is not as obvious when it is a first time meet or it's the daily stuff for me that it tends to be a little bit more known in that way. Because say if I'm having this really cool conversation with my client in my chair and we're like talking and there's blow dryers and all the things, if I am like unaware that like now my energetic voice is trying to match these blow dryers in the background, I rob from the special moments that my coworkers are having with their clients because my energy can get so big. So if it's like it's awareness in that way. Or if I come home and I am like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And like maybe my daughter has been having a really off day and she was feeling really insecure and she was, to her, like, it's just reading the energy of the room of how I can maybe use my superpower of having big energy and instead be like, oh, I'm going to shift this. I'm going to like move into this space of having my big energy be into like my heart space.
Yeah.
Like even if it's just holding energy, because she might not want to talk to me, but it's like, it's just being self-aware, I think, in that.
Well, it's that you're controlling it now. I like that because you're like diving deeper into it, that it's not your subconscious taking over. Like you're actually controlling that personality to benefit your daughter or whatever the situation is.
Yeah. And in relationship too, like in romantical relationship, it's also been that like I think my partners have felt like they have needed to like match that energy. Like I can't hold that energy like you can. And it's like, so for me to now like be so like aware that it's like, you don't have to. You do your energy because that's your superpower, but also allow me the space to hold my energy because that's my superpower. So it's like I'm learning, thank you divorce, I guess, because it like gives you so much hindsight. But if my ex and I will talk, I'm like, it's healthy for us to be able to talk of like, oh, like I could have taken space away when I needed that. Like instead of like now I know I need to wake up at 5 a.m. and I need to like move or look at the sunset or like connect with myself, because I am very much as I am extrovert, I'm very much introvert. Like,
isn't that funny?
It's so funny. Oh man, like if I'm always with people, I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm so done. I need to I cannot talk one more second.
When I was like 14, my dad pulled me aside, and I think I was supposed to speak in church or whatever it was, right?
Okay.
And I do not like being in front of people. It's actually, well, I shouldn't say that because I'm getting over it. Like,
You're doing fabulous.
I've been like talking in
story.
classes. I've been, and people have asked me to speak, and so I'm getting over it. I'm in the process. But like childhood, like I would just fake sick so I didn't have to do it, right?
Oh, that was honest.
But you would get me in a group of, 10 people that I know, and you can't shut me up. And so my dad was like, I just don't understand. I remember this conversation. He's like, I just don't understand you. Like, we'll be in this group of young men in church, and, and I was the president of the quorums and all, I was the leader in all these groups, and like, you do this, I'd delegate, I'd talk, I'd take control, and, whatever that was.
Yeah.
But then you put me in front of 100 people and I'll shut down. Like it's funny because you can probably go back on some of our first episodes and see me do this. When I'm nervous, I don't breathe, like when I'm talking. And so like when I'll be out of breath, like trying to still talk. And like some of the solo episodes I've done, I get so nervous of doing it solo that I'll be out of breath and I have to like stop and Mallory probably hates the couple solo ones I've done because we've had to cut up so much of it and marry these parts that actually worked.
Yeah.
And but I don't know. It's this. But I like what you were saying, where you can control that energy in the different situations that you're in. And so that's where I think about that all the time when I get in situations of my dad telling me like, I don't understand where this comes from you.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm trying to get over it. Like you had said, the whole, opening yourself up to the book and getting over that fear and even just gaining the confidence from it. Right. And it's like, well, you got to do hard things to gain confidence. Like that's how this whole thing works. Yeah. And getting out of your comfort zone and how that leads to confidence.
Yeah. And it's like healthy getting out of your comfort zone. Like I'm not going to do something. I mean, maybe like you hear some of these people that do like some radical things. And for me, I'm like, I'm just like dipping my toe in. I'm like, I want to know that I can do like one little thing, like I did an ice bath, like hell yeah, I did.
I can do this,
and then you build another little confidence and another little, like it's like, yes, we are incredibly capable of doing these things that are seemingly impossible, but it's like also we can't like lie to ourselves either for like, I can do this. Right. And inside we're like, there's no way I can do this. It's like, it builds that confidence.
See, I struggle with people that, and it's like, I feel like it's a fault of mine that I still don't understand, but I struggle with people that don't have that urge to progress. Right.
Ooh, so like expound on that. What do you mean?
Well, like you're saying, like, well, I'm going to dip my toe in and do this, Like you're trying to progress the whole time. Right.
Oh yeah.
And trying new things and trying to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And like, I think we even had a comment on one of our episodes where I was saying, like, get out of your comfort zone, do something new, grow. Like, what if you're not growing? What are you doing? Like, I was kind of hammering that home.
Okay.
And someone was like, dude, I'm fine, like, not progressing. And I'm just like, what are you doing then?
You feel that secure in your life that you're cool with like.
Maybe he's the most amazing person ever. I don't know. But I'm just like, I struggle with people that aren't trying to have that progression consistently. But that's that's who I am 24 hours a day. Yeah. Like I'm trying to push forward. I'm trying to gain relationships. I'm trying to connect to people. I'm, whatever it is. Yeah. And people and I'm not even saying I'm right or wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Sure. But that's my struggle, right? Yeah. Is I'm like, am I just a little crazy? Like where I'm trying to do all these things and progress. And then I see someone else and I'm like, that simple life kind of looks nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's a story there's like this fisherman and this like small, have you heard of this story? There's like a fisherman and he's like living this like
fisherman stories.
Okay. Yeah. Going. Right. We all do, right? Like Alan Watts shit. That's great. But there's this like, so the story, I'm going to slaughter it and it's fine. But the idea is that this guy, like, he goes and he visits this fisher town, and this like fisherman is like, yeah, I go like fishing during the day. I come home, have a siesta, and then have dinner with my wife. Like, and the fisherman's like, oh my gosh, well, if you like take and like, you can grow. And he's like basically telling him like, here's how you can like mass produce
you can get 2 boats, and then you can hire this.
Exactly.
And
you have heard it. And the moral of the story is, if you haven't heard this, but that the end of it is like, the guy's like, and then what?
Right.
And the guy's like, well, so that you can, so that you can live the life that you're
already living.
Yeah. And it's like, we can go and appreciate that, you know, and that's where we can also, you know, for the person, like, so many times people are mirrors for us, you know, where if we get triggered, it usually has nothing to do about them and it has everything to do about us, usually, right? I don't know, maybe.
No, that makes sense.
Okay. So if like something is triggering where you're like, you're satisfied with like this, why? Like, that question is a super beautiful question to ask yourself. Like, ooh, that's beautiful. Like, what? How can that relate to myself? Like, because that person's just sharing something. It may not have even been the words, right? Our spouses do that to our kids do that. Our friends do that to us all the time, where it's triggering and we're like, but those are fabulous opportunities to go within and be like, am I giving myself permission to be okay with the way my life is right now? Like, am I okay with who I am? Do I want to be someone else? Do I want to get to that space? It might be like, maybe those are moments, those like that we know that there's this uncertainty. Or maybe it's something where it's like, oh, that didn't really resonate, but it's like, I'm curious about it because I got annoyed by it. How do I want to lean into it? And then we can become conscious. Ooh, there was one thing this last year of my life. And there's a quote that's like, and she like did it, right? Like, she knew she could do it and then she did it. And I've had that quote on my vision board for a few years now. I'm like, hell yeah, I can.
Yeah.
And I changed it this year. I like physically went in and changed the writing. And it was like, and she watched herself as she did it. Because I actually want to watch through these eyes. I don't only want to watch through, there's like, I think I live so much in this like space in my mind that I forget to be present in my body, that I'm like, I don't want to miss this anymore. I want to like, yes, I create in outer space, man. Like, get me there. I love it. And that's what my 5 a.m.s are for, or that's what my evening meditations are for. But during the day, like, I want to look through my eyes and like pay attention to the people that I'm talking to, pay attention to like the work that I'm doing, like not just mindlessly weave hair over and over again or write. Like, I want to watch myself live, which is really cool. It's totally shifted. Just like my days of like maybe not being as anxious and being more appreciative, like there's more gratitude.
Sure.
Like, and I want to remember it. Because I feel like there have been times where I'm like, I don't even know where the last 5 years of my life went. Where even was I?
Right.
Like, damn it. But if I'm watching through my eyes, I'm going to remember it. Hopefully. Cross my fingers, hope to die. Like,
well, that's like my side of that is I've tried to be more like, take this in, right? And so when we're doing things, me, my wife, my son, whatever we're doing, and my wife's just snapping pictures and taking videos and doing it, and I'm just sitting there just like living for the moment, you know? And then like 2 weeks later, I'll see some of those pictures and I'm like, man, I'm really glad she took some pictures.
Right?
And so I've seen both sides of that.
Yeah.
Where I'm like looking at my wife like, dude, just put the phone down.
Just
like,
be here.
Yeah, just look at what's going on, you know? And watch him do this or watch me do this or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't take very long till I'm off on 40 other things and I get brought back to that moment in a picture or a video. And then I'm like, man, I'm glad that she actually took the time to capture that. And that, you know, and I've thought this too. I've thought like she's giving up living in that moment to capture that moment.
Right.
And I've had thoughts like that of like, what's better, like trying to live in that moment or capture that moment? And I don't know. I guess it's two different things. Maybe you can't have both. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Or maybe it's specific to being present to know where you're at.
Yeah. I mean, I'm working through that whole thought like now because I've had it a few times.
Yeah.
And my mom was a picture taker. It's like our whole lives there's documented, right?
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
And I hate taking pictures because of it. Like now I'm just trying to control my kid, and I just sit there with a smile trying to control him the whole time. But growing up, I hated it. But now like my mom's got like tubs and tubs of all these pictures and things, and she kept everything. And I know sometimes I'm like, dude, you're kind of like a serial killer with all this stuff. It's kind of weird. But at the same time, I'm like, it is cool to go back and look at some of that stuff, And I mean, like I
love that. I
mean, everyone's getting older, grandparents getting older, and you just think like all these memories that we have, and at least this is how I am.
Okay.
I have these memories because I've relived them in stories and pictures so many times.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh, 1,000,000%.
And so I'm like, I'm so grateful that we have that stuff and the stories. I mean, I have 3 older brothers and a little sister. So like when we all get together, it's just story after story after story. And do you remember this and remember that? And he was there. And it's like, that's the stuff that I'm glad was documented to a point to where we can go back and relive those things.
Yeah.
I don't even know how we got to this place.
Yeah. I love it. Well, there's like a sweetness to it, There's this like appreciation for those like memories that get ignited. And it's so fun because, if we think about the way that our kids relate to things, like my kids will share stuff and I'm like, that's not at all what happened. I'm like, wow, their mind totally believes that this is how it is. And when we have a picture, when we have memories and we're talking to siblings, like those stories come out and we're like, wait, I remembered it this way. Like you remembered it that way. Like
I wasn't even there.
Yeah, like,
that's happened to me a few times.
Yeah. What?
I remember you there, dude. I'm pretty sure I wasn't there.
Pretty sure I wasn't. So it's also like it holds this just a sweetness to the way that memory actually is. And that for me, it gives me a little bit more grace to myself that like maybe even some of these traumas that I'm holding on from my past, they're not really even like if I were to look at it from an adult perspective, it's not what happened, but it was so traumatic at that age.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, because we can take our whole lives and try to figure out our past, right? Like inner child work and all the things. Like I spent years down this like, I need to heal. And I'm like, all right, I'm always going to be a mess. Like I'm going to just continue to heal. Maybe let's just figure out how I do today. And who do we want to connect with? And if that shit's real, like the present moment, and that's what's shaping, like we'll remember or we'll be around or all the things that do bring us that sweetness of life. I don't know. It's okay. I'm going to send you something. There's this Alan Watts thought actually that he talks about that we get like, that we almost are like when we take pictures, he wrote about it in like it's the newspaper, it's almost like that we like that more, that it like we read about it the next day.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, but that's someone like if they didn't write about it and they didn't do it, then we wouldn't be able to hear that. Or someone that's like, you just need to be in the moment and they're not recording Alan Watts, like his talking. Well, then we wouldn't have heard him.
Right.
It's what's to say what's really real. I think maybe what's real is what we make real. Who knows? But
I think they're saying when you recall things, I could be wrong on this, but it's like over 50% of what you recall isn't even accurate.
Dude,
I'm trying
I would
to remember
believe
who
it.
has said that, but I don't recall.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look it up. But they've done tests on it, like there's studies and everything, and half of what you remember isn't even accurate.
Dude, that's so crazy because I'm like, I'm pretty sure it was that way.
Well, I like take another step with that, and I'm like, it's like you had kind of said before with, well, that's what I was feeling in that moment, so this is how I interpreted this.
Ooh, yeah.
And so it's like, well, is 50% of it wrong, or is it just two different people, interpreting the same thing two different ways?
Yeah.
And I think in different times of your life, you interpret the same thing two different ways. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you put me in a situation when I was 10 and a situation when I was now, I'd be different. Like at least I should be. You know, I think you should be growing.
Yeah.
Again, back to the whole progressing thing.
I'm not a 10-year-old anymore.
Right.
I may be operating some parts of me at a 10-year-old.
But that's what I wonder. It's like, are you really just misremembering, or are you remembering what your thoughts and emotions were in that moment? Right.
Ooh, that is a delicious thought to think about.
Yeah. I've realized the more I do my contract post office routes when I'm actually doing it, because I'm by myself for hours.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of weird like thought process, not weird, but just different processes than when I'm at like my retail store working all day.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm just by myself driving.
What do you feel inspired to do in those moments? Do you listen to things? Do you what is your...
When I'm on those jobs?
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
headphones on all day.
Yeah.
And so I'm usually, I'll have, I have like my Spotify music that is probably played the most. Like that's what I'm going through the most. I talk about Eric Thomas on here a lot. Do you know who Eric Thomas is? Hip hop preacher. He's like a motivational speaker.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to look him up after this.
Yeah. Like he was like the first thing that kind of changed a lot of my thinking and into business and into trying to help other people in the podcast. And so he's a huge influence, like my turning point. And he has a Pandora.
Oh, like a station.
Station, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I was gonna say channel, but that wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has a Pandora station. And so
I love that you're a fellow Pandora person. A lot of people are Spotify. I'm like, I have Pandora.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pandora station.
So he's got one, so I'll just play that. And it's like his little talks and motivation clips and different things.
Ooh.
I consume a lot of stuff when I'm out there. I've listened to books. I've done, and you know, going back to this mailer route, because I'm like living it right now. So I'm actually trying to give one of them up. And so you have to give a 90-day notice to dissolve the contract. And I have like 17 more days.
Okay.
And so that's why I'm out there 6 days a week right now, is because I've moved all my help to other contracts. And so I'm just hammering the rest of the days out.
Yeah.
But I've noticed like just my life in general is way different when I'm doing these routes. And because I have to be more disciplined. So as far as I get up at 6 or 6:30 every morning, and get ready, I have to drive out to Hurricane. So it's like a 30-minute drive from my house. Yeah. And then I'm doing that job until about 3. And then I check in with the other contracts, make sure they're done. And then I go to the store and then I go home. Right. But it's like, it starts my day off earlier. I'm more productive because I'm moving earlier. I'm on a diet right now. So it's like I eat in the mornings. I never used to eat in the mornings. Yeah. And my retail store opens at noon. So like, if you can imagine, if I don't have anything to do in the morning,
you're like, I'll wake up when I want to.
Well, and even like,
or your son wakes you up.
Even if I got up at like 7 or 8, like I'm still just like sluggish all day till I have to be at the store at noon. Yeah. And so it's changed. Plus everything I'm consuming when I'm out there. I don't know. It's just like I've done it I've delivered mail out in Hurricane for 16 years. And so like, and I've done it like for the city. I've done it for these contracts. I've done like every job you can do out there but the postmaster. Okay. And so I've been on the route every day. I did it for 4 straight years, every day. Dang. And then I got it hired out, so I wasn't doing it as much. And then now I'm back to doing it again. I went like 2 years and I did like 3 days in 2 years. And then now I'm back to doing it every day. And it's weird. I can like pick out the differences in my life in those things. Wow. Is that weird?
I think I think it's, again, self-reflective. Yeah. You're paying attention. You know, you're maybe not on this like, what is it? Like you're on autopilot. Yeah. Like it's like you've stepped into a new thing where you're like, oh, I can't be on autopilot the same anymore. Right. Like exactly. I've got to consciously do something different because I'm doing something different. Have you noticed, because you have more this like earlier structure and more time with yourself and more time with your thoughts to process and listen, have you noticed shifting? Is that kind of where you're like, whoa, okay, like I'm going to make these better decisions, or it's like you're almost, it sounds to me that you're like on this like investigative spot in your life where you're like, oh.
Well, I think what I've come up with, and I'm still fluid in this conclusion, but I think what I've come up with is where I have to be more disciplined in my day. Like I have to be more efficient throughout my day.
Yeah.
Because I just have more things crammed into one day than I would if I was just going to work at noon to 6. It's like when I have that discipline, I'm more efficient in everything. I'm not really, like I said, I'm forming these thoughts right now, but it's like, because I have that discipline, it makes me better through the day.
I like that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're consciously you're constantly aware of the decisions that you're making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess maybe I shouldn't put this on record, but I'm almost trying to figure out how to, because if we give this route up in 17 days, right? Like, how do I manufacture that discipline? And it sounds easy. You wake up at 6, but
yeah, it isn't as easy when your bed is very warm and it is dark outside.
Right. I'm just trying to think, like, how do you manufacture that or implement it?
Yeah.
When that, because like these contracts, you have to be there every single day.
Yeah.
Right. Like someone does, me or someone.
Yeah.
And if someone's not, it's me.
Yeah.
And so and I've done it for so long, it just flips a switch in me where I'm like, okay, I can't be sick. I can't get hurt. I can't get, because I have to be there every day. So I'm trying to figure out, how do you manufacture that when it's gone?
Yeah. I've had friends ask me that because this year, like, I always wake up. It's like between 5 and 6, I'm awake. And even if I'm like,
so was it 4 and 5 today?
Because
so time change today.
And I love it though, because now I can look at the sunset. That's been my ritual. Like, I find like something that's ritual for me. So it used like yoga, sometimes it like doing my own yoga practice or, but it's like just getting up and getting out of bed is really, it's like that has shifted my life. And even in the evenings, like knowing it would be different if I had a 3-year-old, right? Like I would have to do it in the morning or when baby goes to bed or, but I've got teenagers now. Like they're over me, man. I'm like, do you want to snuggle? I'm like, please, I really need physical touch right now. Can you snuggle me? They're like, no, go get a boyfriend. I'm like, oh, you suck, But it's like, but it's very conscious. Like I make that decision to wake up every morning because I know how much it fuels me.
Yeah.
So I don't always know what I'm going to do because it's not like you wake up and, I'm going to consume this, and sometimes it is like I'll find a book that I really like. Like right now I'm listening, part of my devotion is the Creative Act by I cannot believe I forgot his name. Rick Rubin, maybe, I think is his name. He's fabulous. It's such a good book, but like one chapter, I'm like, pause, play. Like it's just so good for me. So it's like sometimes I will like filter through that, but I get very bored too. So I'm like, I'm going to do a different book.
Yeah.
But it's just the act of getting up. There's a book called The 5 a.m. Club too. I haven't read it. I saw it I had like 8 credits to use so I could cancel my Audible and I was going to lose them. And I was looking through. Anyways, it's called The 5 a.m. Club. I was like, ooh, I could join that right now. I'm kind of there. I'm like, for sure, the 6 a.m. club.
See, like my wife's a morning person.
Yeah.
And I've never been a morning person. And so like, I would stay up till midnight or 1 before I would get up at 5.
Well, maybe that's when your time is too.
So
I don't think it needs to be at 5 a.m. Maybe you're the midnight club.
Yeah.
Create a new club. Like,
well, so it's funny because I've been that guy my whole life.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily say like my family, I wouldn't say my family's that way. Maybe they are now that I'm thinking about it. My wife's family's more like get up early in the morning. Right?
Okay.
And so just recently, like last 4 or 5 months, like I've just been going to bed earlier. And then because I'm having to get up and do this route every day.
Yeah.
And so I'll go to bed earlier and I try to get up early enough to where I can, sometimes my wife leaves before me and will take my son to daycare. So I try to get up and help him get in the car, get him ready. Right.
Yeah.
And so like it's forcing me to get up early and I've been going, plus I'm on this diet. So that shit ain't helping either.
Yeah. You're like,
I'm on this carnivore diet that we've kind of cheated into a little bit of keto stuff too. But
okay.
So I'm off all the sugars. I'm off all the caffeines. I'm off
Way
all
to
that
go.
stuff. And so like, man, like 7, 8 o'clock rolls around and I'm spent. Like I'm ready for bed. And then it's almost like forcing me to be a morning person.
Ooh, are you liking it?
I'm more productive. You know, I'm definitely more productive.
Yeah.
And like I said, all those years I was that guy because I was forced to with the job I had. Like I would never have chose to. Yeah. Back then I could pull an all-nighter and now I can barely pull an all-dayer. So it's a lot different for me now.
Well, and you've got so many more. Think about how much energy you're using in your brain.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds to me that you are constantly like, you're going through scenarios. You're looking at all the things, and they're all
I like how you say scenarios.
Yeah, because you're like, wait, the actual way I say it? How did I say it?
How do you say it?
Scenarios.
What
is it? How do you say it?
I'm not making fun of you. I just like the way you said it.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's totally
now
fine.
You're going to shut down. You're like, screw this guy. Makes fun of the way I say scenarios.
Whatever. We all say things. My stepdaughter, she used to be like, instead of a monster, she's like, it's a monster.
Monsters.
And I'm like, no, it's not. And then she would be like, what do you get dressed up in on Halloween? I'm like, a costume. And she's like, no. Wait, I'd say costume.
Costume?
Yeah, I would say that for years. And my stepdaughter's like, a costume? I'm like, yeah, monster. Like we all
say. Your pinkies up when you drink or what? How do you say? Are you from Utah?
I was born and raised in Utah. And then at 18, I'm like,
what would you call like
not that.
The Rocky
Mountains?
Yeah. So you pronounce it. You pronounce it how you should. But I call it a mountain.
Oh, that's right. The T thing.
It's a mountain.
The mountain. Well.
oh, thanks.
Yeah.
You jerk.
Hey, you made fun of scenario.
I honestly said I like how you said it. No, I had someone.
Isn't that the best?
I had someone correct me on that when I said mountain.
Really? That they were like, it is not.
They're like, you mean mountain?
Yeah.
And I was like, is that like a Utah thing? Yeah. And she was from Texas, and she's like, I'm pretty sure that's a Utah thing.
Yeah, I bet it is. I would say mountain.
You would call it a mountain?
Yeah, but I do think I say weird things like
scenario.
Or like if it's a button, I have to think about it because I say D's. I say button.
Okay.
Like
a button?
Yeah, it's like, that's a button.
I'd call it a button.
Button. Yeah, I like it. Well, and like hurricane. I keep saying hurricane. I'm like, it's not Hurricane Jane, it's hurricane. For whatever reason.
So people that aren't from here, we have a town called Hurricane.
Yeah,
right?
Man.
And it's spelled hurricane.
It's hurricane.
So what's funny is like I've been working out there half my life, right?
Yeah.
And so and I do talk to text all day because I'm on my phone almost all day.
Yeah.
But if I say hurricane, my phone doesn't know what I'm saying. And so this one time,
what does it type
it's a funny story.
Okay.
So this one time I was texting my wife.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I said, I'm just leaving hurricane.
Yeah.
And it typed out, I'm just leaving her again. Yeah, had to correct that one real fast.
She's like, excuse me? Like, we're just open here that you're like,
right.
Who's her?
Who's her? and now I call it hurricane because I have to voice text it so much. I've just gotten used to saying hurricane. Isn't that funny?
It is funny. It's funny how it is, how we say the things that we say.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I love it. Man, I love tangents too. Aren't they so fun?
I know. Like, I'm always just like, how did we get here?
I don't know. Like, that's what's so fun. That's what's so fun about conversation. I love it.
What else you got? I mean, I think we've kind of crossed off everything I was going to say.
Dude, I think we did pretty damn good.
I mean, I had a great time.
Yeah, I did too. Self-discovery, reflection. We're like figuring it out. And the morning stuff, going back to that morning stuff, what if we could just lean into like, that feels good right now. I'm going to like do it some more and see like, what if something happens? Like, what if it's magic? Right now. Yeah. Like it doesn't always mean that I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. for the rest of my life. But it does mean like I'm getting a ton of value waking up at these times and I can see it and I can feel it when I don't. But then also like taking time to sleep in, like, dude. Like this last week, I literally turned off my alarm.
Wow.
And because it was on Sunday because I knew I would wake up before the time because I wanted to go to my Sunday slow flow. It's such a good yoga class. And so I'm like, I don't think I'm going to wake up when I normally wake up. And it was like this treat that I gave myself that I knew I was going to sleep in past 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like I don't know. There's like these different points, these different phases. So if that morning, if you're like having this hunch where you're like, oh, I can really appreciate that I have this structure that's like showing me this cool thing. It's like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like follow that.
Now that I think about it, we should probably cut that out so my wife doesn't hear it. Because now she's just going to make sure I'm up at 6 o'clock every day.
Oh, yeah. You keep it in for that sake.
She's been running a lot right now. And so she just did the St. George Marathon.
Dang.
And now I'm not versed in all this, but I think it's called an ultra.
Yeah.
Is that 100? I don't even know what that is.
Dude, it's like a lot of miles.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is.
I don't either.
She's trained. That's the next thing. So she's training for that.
Dang, she's badass.
And so now that I get up earlier and leave for work. So she's even gets up earlier and goes running, so she could be back when I leave, right? And I'm just like, dude, you're wild. Like I've moved to getting up at 6, and now she's getting up at 4, so she can go running.
Yeah.
Like I don't know anybody who likes running that much,
dude. Well, so I was reading this book, Not Nice. Totally flipped my world on people pleasing. Such a good book.
Not Nice.
Not Nice. Dr. Aziz. He's great. He has another book called The Art of Extraordinary Confidence that is so good. I think I've heard of that. Dude, it's so good. It was the one right before Not Nice. He woke up when he wrote Not Nice. He was like, because he has 2 babies now, he's like, the only time that I knew that I would get kind of like your wife, knowing like if this is a goal for me and I have enough determination to wake up at 4 to do it. And that's what he would do. Yeah. He would take his writing time because he knew that was the time that he could do it with and be a support to his wife and his boys when they wake up.
Isn't that interesting?
And he did it. That's how he wrote. If I'm remembering it right, like at 4 a.m. I'm like, whoa, to wake up and sit down and write, like, okay. And I can see little lights at the end of the tunnel because when there's a will, there's a way, right? It's never about having the time. It's making the time. Right. Like if you want something enough, you're going to do it.
Well, it's like right when we sat down, we talked about the diet and you brought up 75 hard and I'm like, I probably listen to Andy more than anybody.
Yeah.
And then I actually have the book and just to read it,
yeah.
You know? And you're like, well, why aren't you doing this? And I'm like, well, I just don't have the time, right? And it's funny because it's like, what do you prioritize, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've switched from I'm busy, like everyone's like, oh, I'm just busy.
Yeah.
To like, I'm trying to be more productive. And it's almost made me more productive through my day to where I'm like, I don't even know what else I would cut out. You know, like now it's more of like it's not production. What's more productive? It's like, what brings me more value or what do I value more? Right.
I love that.
I don't know. It's like, again, I'm fluid right now. Like I'm changing a lot right now. I feel like. I
love it. Well, your world's getting rocked with your boy, right? Yeah. Like you have this like love of your life now that you had no idea that you're like, whoa, I'm going to shift these things because I want to be able to show up for myself better, for my boy better, for my wife better. The dynamics, everything is shifting in a way where you're like, I want, it's like quality of life.
Yeah. Like my wife and I, we've always had a great relationship. We're both very independent. Like she does her own thing. I do my own thing. Like she does her own thing, works and plays. I do my own thing, work.
Work. Sounds like you need more play.
Yeah. But like she has her friend group. I have mine, you know, like and when we're together, great. You know, like I love being around her too, but we're not like clingy. We're not, it's 5 o'clock. Where are you? Like we're not that. Even when we were dating, I was like, hey, like you'll know when I'm done working because I'll call you. Like I don't need to be called throughout the day. Like I'll call you when I'm done.
Oh, I like. And I love that you actually said that. Note to all the mans out there, like say that.
Yeah.
Say it. Like, okay, I loved that.
Like I'd have girlfriends call me and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, it's 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. I'm freaking working. Like, what do you expect? What do you think I'm doing? Like, you know, I'm at work. Yeah. What do you want?
Yeah.
You know? And it would always be like contentious.
Oh.
And so with her, I mean, that was a boundary we drew early, which like she was also busy. She was in the nursing program. She worked. She had her own life going on. then financially she can support herself. She doesn't need me, you know?
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason, like, that was part of the reason I kind of fell for her, is she had like her own path, you know?
Yeah.
And that was something that I thought was very attractive.
Yeah.
And then you bring a kid into the mix and it's like, well, now we kind of have to work together.
Ooh.
You know, now we're kind of being forced
Super good point.
to at least like get schedules the same. And that's hard for us to, like I said, I'm a few jobs. She's on the trauma orthopedic surgery team. So she's on call. She's working late some nights and not other nights. And it's like, that's been a struggle for us the last few years, is even just lining up our schedules.
Yeah.
You know, and like, that's probably been one of the hardest things about having a kid, is just, where does that fit into this, you know, somewhat productive day that I have
you're like, we're really independent. This kid does not get the memo. Like, listen, buddy, you need to become independent here.
Right.
Like,
well, I'm like, I just can't wait till he's a few years older, and I think he'll just roll with me every day. You know, just load up with dad and let's go.
Oh, I love that. And you were telling me that earlier. Like, he's such a dad's boy.
Everything's dad. And
that's so cute.
like, I feel bad a lot of the times because my wife is so sweet, but like, he just wants dad.
What? Okay, I actually feel like a lot of the times that is like, it's like opposite in that way, that there's like this mom.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you guys have been able to create a beautiful balance where there isn't this like this clingy only, you know, to mom, but you've been able, because I think that means that she's done a beautiful job as being a mom, to be able to, like, your role as dad, to be like, absolutely, you need to come in there as dad. Like, that is so beautiful, because I think it is like tricky for like dads to know where they fit in, to be able to create that role with like, so it's beautiful. It sounds like she's been able to really let go and like in a beautiful way, to where obviously she's still like mama. Like, he wants the snuggles, he wants all the things. Let's be real. It's like us moms, we have that superpower.
Well, so we just went camping over the weekend. So we have an acre up on Duck Creek, and we keep a trailer up there all summer.
Oh,
and then we bring the trailer back.
I hear it's beautiful up there.
Yeah, so we just went up and got the trailer over the weekend.
Yeah.
And so it's just the three of us. And like, there's like a front, like the trailer has like a bed on the front, like the queen. Oh, yeah. You know, where you, the
hitches.
I want to call it like the master, but it's not, right? It's like the main bed.
It's like the real fancy bed in that trailer.
And then we have like the dining room set that like collapses into a big bed.
Yeah.
And so I usually sleep in the like main bed, and my wife will go sleep with my son on the kitchen.
Okay.
And so we swapped this time. And I was like, oh, so William's my son's name, right? So we call him Big Willie. So I'm all, Big Willie, you're sleeping with dad tonight. And he's like, okay. It lasted like 20 minutes, and he was going to snuggle with mom.
I'm going to take mom's mom snuggles.
Time.
Oh, for sure. Nope, you can't take that away from us.
I'm like, I don't know what season it is right now, but I know it's dad's season, and I'm just soaking it up as much as I can.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see how having kids couldn't change your life in that way, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that, I don't know. I've also like structured my life, and before him, I didn't know if we would ever have kids. Like, I was on the train of like, I don't know if, like, we were so comfortable. We were making money. We do whatever we wanted. She's a traveler, so she's going on vacation all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I'm like, why do you want to tie all this down with a kid? You know? And but now I'm just like, well, this is what I had hit all my goals when I was 30 years old, right? Like, all the goals I made in high school, I hit them at 30. And so it's because I didn't set high enough goals. It's not because I'm like just this amazing person. I didn't even know what was possible. So I didn't even set high goals, right?
Okay.
So I hit those goals at 30, and I'm like, well, what now? Like, we built our dream home. We make good money. Whatever it is, I've got a trailer. I've got mountain property. I've got the razor. I've got, all these things, right? Like, I didn't dream big enough. And
those are still pretty great dreams to hit. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, if I hit that when I was 60, I'd be jacked.
Yeah, you're
back then. And now I'm like, okay, we need more.
Yeah.
But like, having him, and I even talked to my brother Adam about this. I was like, yeah, dude, I just, like I'm even losing drive because I'm like, I've hit everything.
Oh.
Like, I don't even know what else I'm supposed to be doing. I just work now because that's what I'm supposed to do. And then he's like, yeah, dude, wait till William gets older. Like that'll shift you.
Yeah. It sounds like it already
It
is.
already has. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I had to accept it though. Like, I had to accept that like I always have to credit my wife. She could financially support us. Right. And so I can go out and take these risks and go out and do these things. And I mean, she hates it when I talk about her on here, but like she's amazing. Like there's not a lot of people like her out there. And so it allows me to go do more of these things to try and build that foundation for him. Right. Like if I didn't have her and I was working a 9 to 5, you know, killing myself every day for that 401k and that health insurance, like if I was that guy, then our whole lives would be different. Yeah. And so having her in my corner to do that, like allows me to take risks and invest in different things and do a podcast and, and all these other things. And so,
man, what a great duo.
Yeah.
You guys seem to be able to do that really well.
We do all right.
Hell yeah. Yeah, own that.
I'm trying to accept your compliment. And I'm not very good at that.
And you mostly did.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That says a lot.
Like one other thing I want to bring up, and then we can probably wrap this up. But we were kind of talking about that self-aware. I just had a story. This is just 3 days ago. Yeah. And I was talking to Tyson, my buddy. Yeah. And it was kind of one of those like not bitching moments, but I was just kind of like maybe venting, but maybe not even all the way venting. I was just kind of telling him some stuff I was going through. Yeah. And him and I get deep. Like, love that. And he's the one that first always give him all the credit. He was the first one that was like, you got to start a podcast, dude. And this had happened years and years. And I'm like, whatever, and so I always shout out Tyson when it comes to the podcast.
Way to go, Tyson.
But without him, this wouldn't never have came about. So we were kind of having this conversation. I was just kind of complaining a little bit, rough day type of thing, right? Yeah. And kind of just going through it. And there was something that had happened that I felt like was to me, right? And so that's what I was complaining about. I don't really want to get into particulars, but
sure.
Like I thought I was wronged, right? I guess is the way to put it.
Okay.
And so I thought that it was being harsh towards me and I was wronged. And, we kind of just talked it out, whatever. Like it's not life-changing, but it was just something I'd felt. Yeah. And so I hung up with him and I was doing my post office route and I get done with my route. And the whole time I'd been thinking like, why did I even feel the need to take the energy to explain all of that to him and then steal his energy by doing that? Yeah. I had this whole thought and again, I'm alone for 3 hours. So bear with me, people. Yeah. And so when I got done with the route, I was driving home and I started thinking like, why did I care that much? Yeah. And I started finding like those insecurities inside of myself. So I was like trying to put this other person down that I felt wrong to me. Yeah. And then after I started opening the whole thing up more, I started thinking like, okay, he probably didn't wrong me. It's my insecurity here. Yeah. That made me interpret that like we were talking earlier.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Like
it triggered that inside of you.
You're right. And so I'm sitting there like, no, this is a me thing. Like I'm not confident in this part. I overlook this or think about it too much and so I called him back on my way home and I'm all, I know, dude, you're sick of me today, but I just need to get this off my chest. And he's like, what's up, man? What's going on? And so I like worked that. So again, I'm a 30-minute car ride home pretty much. And so the 25 minutes of that, I was just like, dude, I'm just trying to be aware here. Like, does this making sense? Am I on the right point here? Like, and he's like, yeah, dude, I was thinking about that when you were telling me everything. He's all, I knew you'd come to the conclusion that this was your insecurity, not theirs.
What a great friendship.
Yeah, it's funny because like other people, when they look at him and how he communicates and everything, people just think he's a little off. I don't mean that in a rude way. Like he just communicates different. Yeah. But the way that him and I, when we get together and communicate, it's just raw. Like it's it's weird as a dude to even like talk about stuff like that, right?
Yeah, sounds incredibly healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't talk like that. I don't even talk like that with my wife. And so like when I call him, he's like, all right, what's
Dang.
going on, man?
What?
Like, where are we getting deep? And so,
Oh, I love that.
I don't know. So going to that, I think if people don't have that,
Yeah.
and you know, another part of that, like I touched on, is when you're unloading to people, when you're just like word vomiting your problems to people,
Yeah.
like you're stealing their energy too.
Yeah.
You know, and now, so like Tyson's a single dad, right?
Yeah.
And so now I talk to him for 2 hours out of the day.
Yeah.
And I steal 20% of his energy with my issues.
Yeah.
Now he's got, 80% of his energy, and then work takes 40 of that. And now he's got 40% of his energy with his kid, and I stole 20 of it. You know what I mean? So like like just doing easy numbers here, but
yeah.
I think that there's got to be a little more respect for people too.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of that, like cutting out the negative people in your life, like all the influencers talk about, like, that's where it comes from, I think, is people aren't, and I was not being that person too. So this is a me thing too.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be respectful of other people that you're unloading onto.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
True. Yeah. And like, what is your intention? Like, what is your, like, and who are your people?
Yeah.
Sometimes if someone's going to ask you, like, how you doing? And then you're just like, blah, 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 it's like, oh, that was the wrong timing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, so it's like being aware of like, how's the timeline? How's the like, okay, where are we at on like, is this person really asking? And it's that self-awareness. And man, if you're realizing too, though, because then you do have those people in your life. I have a best friend that we are able to help really process that with each other. And she, like her and I, we can send like 10-minute voice texts and like, and we're just able to process and like being able to hold that space for each other to like, it's a good time, where it can be like, hey, a voice text is great because then I get to listen to that 10 minutes when it works for me. And then I'm able to connect with her when it works. So it's fine. Those people, like, I would imagine that, like, I don't know that you're stealing those times from him, but you're self-aware enough to be like, ooh, that that energy was a negative, like a drawing energy. And whether or not he's going to accept that or not, or sounds like he was a great friend where he's like, oh, I just need to hold space for my friend. Like, I don't.
As I was explaining that, I think that with him and I, it's more of like, we're both breaking it down to, like, we're learning from it. Like when I'm telling him that, it's like a learning thing for him. And when he breaks, when he gets vulnerable, it's a learning thing for me. So there's like there's a productive thing that comes out of it.
For sure.
Ways. I guess what I meant is like when you just call your friend and you're like, and you just shit on them for an hour.
Oh,
like
totally.
that's what I mean. Like you're just stealing people's energy at that point.
Yeah.
Like when him and I do it, it's like a productive thing at the end.
Yeah.
And that's the relationship I have where I could call him back and be like, bruh, I've been thinking about this for a while, and it becomes a productive thing at the end.
Yeah.
And maybe I should bring him on and ask him. Maybe he has a different story, but
he's like, actually, guys, here's the truth.
He's like, being Derick's friend takes a lot of time.
He's like, but I love it. Well, I'm assuming, like, because you guys are good friends, like, you're doing the same things. And
yeah, we go back and forth.
Like, here's the thing. Like, when like, you're very inquisitive and you're looking and you're like, look, like, I can see it. I can feel it in you. And I can feel that, like, the way that, like, what you draw out of me is something where I want to be honest and I want to be sharing and I like just you in general and like your vision and the different things. Like, I think you're speaking from a lot more truth than you're probably giving yourself credit, because I feel that being drawn out of me and I don't feel like that's only my choice. I mean, yes, it is my choice, but it's a supported choice. You're like holding that space to be able to support it. So like someone, if they don't align with that, they might not resonate with that. But I feel like
I think more often than not, people get like very vulnerable when I talk to them.
Yeah.
And I think, again, like, I think that's part of why this works, why the podcast works.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times I'll just get chatting with someone and like an hour and a half later, I'm like, dude, I don't know how we got to this point. But anyway, hope your mom does okay.
Yeah. Right.
It's like the gift of gab, like you were talking. I've definitely got that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like my headphone was
starting to fall off on you.
It was.
Your head banging over there too
I
much.
was like, what? I was like, wow, why do I feel it in the back of my head?
Yeah.
It's fine.
All right.
Yeah, I think we
that
did
was
pretty
a great
damn
episode.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. I'm excited to see you on a couple other episodes after this
Ooh,
for different
the
podcasts.
circuit?
Yeah, to the Blue Form Circuit.
Man, yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
And taking the time to get to know me and let me get to know you and having these raw moments. Yeah.
Caden and I, you had referenced Caden before we got on here, before we started recording.
Oh, yeah.
Like the podcast, and I say it all the time, you couldn't put a dollar amount on whatever. I mean, just the network, the positivity, the growth, I mean, name it. You couldn't put a dollar amount on what the podcast has given me. And I mean, I could because I pay for it, but
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's the biggest growth thing I've ever done in my life is having the podcast. I mean, we're 122 episodes. I mean, we've had some repeat people.
Yeah.
Call it 110 people. I've met 110 people and got to know them at least an hour of their time in the last 2.5 years. Like who's done that?
That's a lot of golden nuggets that you got.
Right.
Dang.
You know, the other part of it, going back to my kid, is like, I've got a vlog, 122 episode vlog that if I die tomorrow, he can get on there and look at it. You know, if I'm 100 and I die, my grandkids can go look at it.
Yeah.
Like, who has that? I mean, Rogan does, I guess, but you know what I mean? Like, what normal person
We got to
has
jump
that?
on his podcast 3 hours later.
Right. Well, we're coming up on 2.
Dang. We do have the gift of gab.
We do. No, I'm excited. We should do this again.
Yeah, that's fun.
Let's kick it down the road a little bit and we'll update on the book and how the book's going. And I think we'll bring you back on. I think it'll be fun.
I think it'll be fun too. Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys. That's episode 122. This is Simply Jane. Is that easier just to call you that?
Yeah.
The Simple Jane.
The Simple Jane.
The Simple Jane. Where can people find you? How can they follow you? Where's your book? All that.
My social media is not The Simple Jane. It's actually Jane Love Williams, LUV.
Okay.
But we'll probably tag stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You'll be tagged and everything.
Yeah, but then dude, you could go on Amazon and look The Simple Jane and my book will come up, or Audible. Blue Form Media is who did my recording. It's amazing. It sounds amazing.
So
and
the Audible is you reading it.
It is me reading it. Yep, you get to hear yours truly. This voice. You're welcome.
How long did it take to do that, to record it?
I don't remember. A lot. It was a lot of hours. They did amazing. So I feel
That's
like
so cool.
the Audible is like 7 hours long.
Okay.
So however many times I messed up, which was a lot. I'm like,
what do you mean you're not a professional book reader
like,
in a microphone?
It's so true. You get into your head and you're like, I don't remember how to breathe. It's like it's like breathy and you're like, oh my gosh, talk about overthinking. Yeah. So it was a lot of that. But
all right, guys, well, go check out her book, buy it, leave her reviews. All that stuff helps on Amazon. And make sure, go follow her. If you have questions for her, reach out. If you have questions for me about her and it's easier, reach out to us. Anyway, I'm glad you stuck around. We've got about an hour and a half here. So please share the episode and we'll see you guys next week. Peace. Good job. That was fun.